I'm Igor Kayfetz, and this is the List Building Lifestyle, a podcast for those who want to build a large profitable email list and make six figures from anywhere in the world. If you would like to get rich by building a large email list while helping people, this podcast is for you. I also invite you to attend a free web class I'm conducting this week to find out how I built a list of 4,331,656 email subscribers at a profit. Secure your free seat at igor.cx. Attend this free workshop to discover an easy way to get 50 to 500 new email leads per day on complete autopilot without losing tons of money. Just go to igor.cx to attend this free web class. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle. Welcome back to the List Building Lifestyle special New Year's episode with your host, Igor Kayfetz. The timing couldn't be better for today's show because I truly feel like Santa has put me on his good list. You see, we've been blessed to host some amazing people on the show. We've had the best-selling authors, we had 8-figure internet marketers, and even a couple of billionaires. But nothing pumps me more than talking direct response marketing with the world's smartest direct response marketing minds. And boy, oh boy, am I thrilled to bring out my next guest. He's often referred to as the marketing Buddha. He's just as passionate about golf as he is about direct response marketing. He's the go-to guy for people like Tony Robbins, Joe Polish, and Jay Abraham. But all of that pretty much just bleaks in comparison to his invention that forever changed the lives of millions of people, myself included. You see, my next guest is the inventor of the squeeze page. Yes, the page you use to get people's email addresses to build your email list. That's the page. And he was the first one to come up with that concept and start building a list of targeted prospects for you to market your products and services to. You know him as the co-host of the iLoveMarketing podcast. He is none other than Dean Jackson. Dean, welcome to the List Building Lifestyle.
Wow, that's all very exciting. I can't wait to hear what I have to say.
Same for us. And I had to make sure everybody understands the magnitude of this episode because, many of my followers are brand new to marketing. They're still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to build that lifestyle business, which brings me to my first question, because I know you always put your lifestyle first. In fact, in one of the interviews you've done, you've mentioned that you have this way of defining success and then you build your business around it versus the way most people do it when they sort of build their business and they dream about success or lifestyle they're going to have one day. So if you mind, maybe take us through that process, because many of our listeners are quite literally zoning in on one purpose in life, and that is build a business that they can that can support their lifestyle. So this is probably going to resonate a lot with our people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was my goal. When you start seeing, I started out in business before the internet. So, being a marketer and learning all the direct response things that required, mail and print and all the offline things, when the internet came around, it really was just such a great opportunity to really build a lifestyle business around it. That's really what a lot of people early on were attracted to the internet for, and about 20 years ago, I went through a process and started defining success, right? For me, how am I going to know when I'm being successful? That was the more important question to me, and not like most people look at success as this aspirational thing in the future, in the distance, and they're constantly like striving towards it. But the idea of pushing the accelerator pedal, looking up ahead, and kind of defining how will I know when I get there, right? So, because the only time you can experience anything is right now, in the present. So the question that I kept asking was, well, how will I know when I'm being successful? Not when I will be successful, right? So the way that the exercise that I went through was really filling out this statement in different ways that kind of resonated with me. So, and I encourage everybody to do it, is just ask and finish the statement, I know I'm being successful when. And for me, I have a list of 10 that I went through, and they've become like a guidepost for my life, that everything fit around those things. So I'll give you a few of them. So for me, my first one is that I know I'm being successful when I can wake up every day and say, what would I like to do today? That's a successful day. If you have that kind of time freedom where you can control your schedule, you can control your days, that's a nice lifestyle, successful lifestyle to me. The next is that I know I'm being successful when my passive revenue exceeds my lifestyle needs. And so I made the decision early on to lead with revenue and lag with lifestyle, my lifestyle things, material things, or getting
which
caught
is
up
the opposite
in
of how everybody else does it.
Right. So most people, what they do is they get things that require them to then hustle and grind and put pressure on themselves to earn enough money to pay for the things that they're getting. They live above their means, or aspirationally, they call it, right?
Yep.
So I just focused on getting and spending my time on building things that would create passive recurring revenue. And so that way, when you wake up on any given day, you know that there's money coming in, and you're never having to say, I have to go out and make money to pay the mortgage today, Mm-hmm. And so that's been a really good thing. By focusing on the passive revenue, it gives you that freedom, that time freedom, and the space. Yeah. Then my third, and I'll just share this final one with you because you get the whole flavor of it then, that my third one is that I know I'm being successful when I am working on projects I'm excited about and doing my very best work. Mm. Now, the important thing about that statement, and all three of those statements, is that they are scalable in that it's been 20 years now, and I can tell you with certainty that every single day, those have been the things that are driving me, right? Those are the things that make me feel alive and successful. So you feel like you're being successful. I get to wake up and say, what would I like to do today? I've got passive revenue that exceeds my lifestyle needs. I'm working on projects that excite me. Like I get to do the projects that I really want. I'm still doing, I'm constantly doing new things and doing my very best work. And my very best work today is better than my very best work was 20 years ago. And the opportunities that I get are bigger today than they were 20 years ago because everything builds on top of it,
This is incredible because, for the longest time I've struggled, and I think I still, to an extent, struggle with defining what I consider to be success. I have a couple of things, about 4 things that are concrete that I've decided on like way before I succeeded in what I was doing. But I love how your statements are not really tied to like, oh, I drive a Ferrari F550 or whatever.
And that's the thing. None of them are about specific material things or about any acquisition of stuff like that, because that's not how I know I'm being successful, But I happen to drive really nice cars, and I live in great places, and I stay in 5-star hotels, and I travel first class, and I do whatever I want. But doesn't define me being successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's truly incredible, as well as, notice that in your definition of success, you don't stop working all of a sudden.
Right. Yes. That's the thing is like, we kind of think about that somebody's life is going to be just running around goofing off all day. It's not the point. No real entrepreneur aspires to a life of doing nothing,
Yeah, and I tried that. I actually tried that once when I made my first like big paycheck. I went for like 5 days just playing, video games.
Yeah,
and that was exhausting. I was like, wow, I want to do some work now.
Right, and that's what's fun is like I look at it that I mean, I've got the other ones are all sort of about the defining what it is that I really want for my life. Sort of, I don't know what that values or the context of things makes a difference, and that's so. I love having that as a benchmark, because then I can filter every opportunity that I get through all of these things. Like, I have other ones that there's no whiny people in my life, or that I wear whatever I want at all times, and I can disappear for several months with no effect on my income. I can quit any project at any time. I've got no deadlines or time obligations. All those things are like defining what that freedom is. So any opportunities that I'm faced with, I filter through that and say, is this taking me, closer or further away from that?
Interesting. And you put it in one beautiful phrase. You say, I want to live like an artist with a $50K per month trust fund. Yes, that's a great life metaphor, right? Like, the thing is, when you look at what it actually costs to live an amazing life, like, there's not a lot of what I've learned in a lot of things is to define where the exponential increases in happiness are and where the incremental increases in happiness are. Okay. Yeah, this is really important for us to touch on. And I've heard one of your 10-minute talks from the 25K group, and you say, there's a difference between just increasing your results, going from say making X to making X plus 2, versus the multipliers, right? So going from making X to making 5X or 3X, right? So can you perhaps expand a little bit more about that? Sure. I mean, you're talking about it in terms of results. I'm also talking about it in terms of happiness. And so I'll talk about the happiness first, and then I'll share about multipliers. But when I look at it, you realize that there's a exponential increase in utility and happiness going from not having a car to having a car is an exponential improvement in your situation, right? Yep. Then going from having a car to having a reliable car to having a luxury car is kind of incrementally happier than having a car that works, but having a Ferrari or a Rolls Royce, or those things are the reward or the exponential happiness level is not, it's not drives me. I like top end, like normal luxury car, this from my personal happiness level. If you don't mind revealing, if this is not too personal, what do you drive and what have you driven? This is actually pretty fun. I'm a big car guy, and I always love those tidbits on Top Gear. If you ever watch that, when they bring out celebrities and they'll be like, "So, what did you first drive? What did you upgrade to when you became famous?" So why don't we do that? So my progression, the first car, my dream car that I always wanted when I grew up was a Porsche 911, and so almost 20 years ago, I got my first Porsche 911, which I loved. And then I got another one, and then moved into a Mercedes SL 550, which I loved. And then I have a BMW X5M, and I've had, 3 of those, the last 3 vehicles that I have, which are all, so we're talking about, $100,000 cars, not $400,000 cars. And that, for me, that's like what I say, that's where my optimal happiness level is. I saw a documentary about sugar, and they talk about these scientists that measure out what they call the bliss point of flavoring, where there's just this amount of sugar is like the bliss point, and then a little bit more is like where it starts to get too much. Yeah. So for me, my bliss point is $100,000 cars as opposed to $400,000 cars. Yeah, and that's everybody's in that. Yeah. So that said, on the business side of that, I always look for not incremental improvements, but exponential improvements, right? Where are the
the breakthroughs, going from, testing the blue buy button versus the red buy button is going to be an incremental improvement. You're not going to have a breakthrough with a color change or a word change, but the way that you make an offer can be an exponential improvement in something, right? That's all I'm looking for at all times, is where are the exponential breakthroughs.
Yeah, and this is what we've experienced recently in the last couple of months. We've finally, I've been adamant and I've been so stubborn about it, and I regret it so much. My mentor, Tom Beal, was telling me, dude, you got to develop a webinar. And I'm like, no, but we're doing perfectly fine with having an application process and a salesperson. He's like, no, but you have to do a webinar. So eventually we did a webinar, we created one, and just having a webinar in and of itself became an exponential for us. Now, from there, we then created, the webinar offer, and it wasn't working like as well as I hoped it would. So then we changed the offer completely. We literally we sold the same thing, but we positioned it so differently that it didn't seem like the same thing. All of a sudden, the webinar went to start converting at 10, 12, sometimes 15%. And that also became an increment, right? So that was now two exponential increases in a span of just 3 months. And of course, obviously the bottom line grew and the business started evolving. All of a sudden we need, to serve more customers. So we're now experiencing, challenges with the staffing and, just a bunch of things. And it happened so fast.
That's what can happen. Exactly. Because then one thing opens up other opportunities,
Yeah, exactly. And this is something I've also noticed about media. So, for example, when I started this podcast 2 years ago, same thing happened. All of a sudden, my name started appearing, places. All of a sudden, I started connecting with people on a different level, right? So it was because I owned the media. So, people just don't realize how quickly they can create different results if they're just willing to step outside their comfort zone.
That's it.
Now, there's another thing, another quote that I wrote down here. You say that the biggest misconception about marketing is that that people think that it's all about you getting yourself out there. And this is right. This is really big for the industry that I operate in, which is the internet marketing space, because that's what, people hear. They're like, put yourself out there, shoot YouTube videos, show people you're a real person, and yada, yada, yada. Now, you're saying something that's completely different. So perhaps you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, part of the thing, with direct response, of course, is that it's more important it's not about getting your name out here. It's about getting their name in here. It's like, that's the thing. It's more important that you know who they are than they know who you are initially. And that change, I often say to people, it's the difference between focusing on getting rich or getting famous, and it's a lot less expensive to get rich than it is to get famous. And so I always encourage people to focus on that first, and then to take that money, if they still want to, and spend it to get famous,
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. I never thought about it that way. My goal was always to get rich. From day one, and I was very, very fortunate to pick up, quite a few Dan Kennedy's books and courses. And Dan Kennedy is all about pragmatic, get rich, direct response, get stuff done sort of philosophy. And I'm not sure exactly why, but he resonated with me so much that I take anything he says as gospel. Right. So that really served me in my business, because I bootstrapped just a giant business out of my bedroom, and that was great. But I'm also seeing a lot of people say on social media, for example, what they're trying to do is they're trying to become famous to become rich, and that's a way more gruesome journey, in my opinion.
Yeah, because ultimately, if you think about just the bottom line of it, no matter you're getting famous or whatever, the money has to come from somewhere. And the money, in fact, is coming from the exchange of goods or services for someone else's money in exchange for a result, right? That's really what they're buying. And so the better that you can get at being able to produce a result for somebody that is a multiple of what they spend for it, that's where your real outcome is going to come from. Better to get famous for helping people multiply money, right? That's a good, if you really have the goods, if you're really able to produce results for people, that's going to bring fame along with it, because people are going to talk about you and they're going to share that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me take you back in time. Let's go back to the time when you invented the squeeze page. I really want to hear the story. Like, how did you come up with it? What inspired you to do it? What kind of problem were you facing?
Sure. Yeah. I love that whole lore, that whole thing. Back in the day when, the autoresponders were just getting started, people had newsletters and everything was, you could have a sign-up form on your page where people would leave their email address to join your list. And that's what everybody would do, is up in the upper right-hand corner of their web page, they would put, join my email newsletter, right? And what I really started observing and testing was that I realized that the most valuable outcome I could have on a website at first is for somebody to leave their name and their email address, because that way I don't ever care if they came back to the website. I've got now their email address. I can send messages directly to them. And that what I found was, the more you focused on just that, meaning getting it all the way down so that the only thing that somebody could do on your page was leave their name and email address to move to the next page, that got the highest response of anything. As soon as if you had your offer for your ebook or your newsletter or whatever it was you were using for people, if you had that on your webpage, people would leave their name and email address, but the majority of them would click all the other things that are available on your website first, right? Before they would do that. So the fewer the options that we had, the more people would leave their name and their email address. So the first kind of experiments I did with that were, I took, what I called like the Cosmo magazine approach, where I looked at it as like the table of contents of Cosmo. And I would put all these things that were inside, and I would say, instead of click here, it would say free inside. And then it would say something else, and then more inside, and free inside. And there would be, 5 or 6 things that you could get. It looked like the table of contents of what's inside the website. And then it would come to get free instant access. Leave your name and email address, and they would get all of those things. And that got the highest response. So that became the standard of what I would do for everything now. And it really, has taken off as being just a standard thing,
Yo, it's Igor. If you're loving the content, hop on over to listbuildinglifestyleshow.com for more free training and a free transcript of this episode. Oh, and I'd really appreciate if you logged into iTunes and rated the show. It really helps. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. And it did become standard. It still is the standard, at least for people who are measuring their response from the traffic they're getting.
Right.
How, if at all, did it evolve now for you in your business?
So now it's even simpler. Like a lot of the things, so I'll run like full page ads in Success Magazine, say for my email mastery book. And then when you go to emailmastery.com, you see that the only thing you see is the cover of the book, the title, and the chance to leave your name and your email address to get the book. Because that's what I've encouraged them to do in the ad, right? So I look at it that I'm not trying to convince them to leave their name and their email address. I'm not talking about anything that's going to happen after they leave their name and their email address. I'm not adding any new information on the page. It's just like a placeholder that lets them confirm to them that, yeah, you're in the right place. So they're reading a print ad. They decide, I'm going to go and get this book. Then they go to Email Mastery, and instead of adding any new information, all it is, yep, you're in the right place. Come on in. And that page, when I run those ads, we get 68% opt-in from cold magazine traffic, leaving their name and their email address.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, we're seeing this online, but when it comes to offline visitors, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And so that, I prefer those really simple things. I've really honed it down that the best converting things that we've got are books, and using that landing page that only just offers the book,
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about conversions.
Sure.
So you've obviously been building lists in different industries. You've got the stopyourdivorce.com. You've got the real estate business and the real estate education business, because you've had your start in real estate, cold calling people. So,
yes.
So obviously, and I've been telling people for years, I've recorded so many episodes and written so many guides and shot so many tutorials telling my customers, look, people don't buy right away, but perhaps it'll help if they hear it from somebody who's one of the first people in the world to ever build an email list for the purpose of selling something to the list. So
here's the thing, is that the reality is that there's 5 times at least more money in the long game than the short game. And that, as an internet marketing community and industry, we've sort of fetishized the first 30 days as conversions, right? Like everything.
My industry is like 14 days.
I know, exactly. I was being like generous with people, because that's still like really short term, 30 days. But you're absolutely right. It's more like the first 14 days that people opt in. They go through this 14-day gauntlet series and hammer to buy now. And if they don't buy now, then they're considered bad leads, and they just get in the affiliate file, and you just hammer them with other people's offers, right? That's what it is. And so that just is like a churn and burn kind of model, right? And a lot of those, sometimes people can scale those because they'll, do all these things and tripwires and having things where they try and get their earnings per click up, enough that it pays for the ads that you ran to get the opt-ins, and leave some for a profit. And then just continuing to scale that out, right? Well, when you look at it, that's an expense-based approach to list building and marketing on those. And so what I try and encourage people to do is instead take a capital investment approach to it, and realize that the asset that you're buying is the list. The asset is the prospects. And so I've based everything that I've done off of a framework that my expectation is that I'm amortizing, or looking at the cost of these people, the multiplier investment over 2 years. And I look at it that when I first started really studying conversion and lead management, there was I would go deep into, academic stuff and industry stuff and enterprise level stuff. And I found a study and a company that does inquiry handling on an enterprise level, millions of leads a year. And they would do surveys that would take anything that people have inquired about. Let's say that, they would handle for corporations like trade show leads, or somebody goes to the trade show, they scan their name card for information or whatever. They would do the fulfillment and the distribution of those leads and stuff for all kinds of different industries. So they would follow up with people and do something brilliant. They would do these, what they call "Did you buy" surveys. And so they would take a swath of a sample of people at 90-day increments, and they would call you up at 90 days and say, hey, Igor, you came to the home show and you inquired about faucets. Have you bought any faucets? Not what, can we sell you some faucets, or do you want to buy some Kohler faucets? They just want to know, did you buy faucets, right? This is what they're trying to gauge, is your actual buying intention, right? And so what they did was, in their study, they found that just over half of the people that inquire about anything will buy what it is they've inquired about in the next 18 months. So I like to be conservative. So my construct, I took that and said, let's reduce that to 50% and let's extend it to 2 years. So my expectation is, if we have a bundle of 100 leads that come in today inquiring about anything, whatever it is, that if we tag them and then watch them 2 years from now, that 50 of them are going to have bought something in that category, right? So if they inquire about faucets, they're going to buy faucets, 50 of them. So that's been my framework. Now, what they also found is that of the people who buy, only 15% of them buy in the first 90 days. 85% of the value of a bundle of leads today is 90 days or more away.
Interesting.
And so that framework, if you look at it now, that's why.
It didn't change.
No.
We actually measured it. In our business, what we do is we sell advertising leads, traffic, and basically help people build their email list. And we measured it. Last year, we actually started tracking specifically at what is the average amount of, in percentages, buyers that act within the first 2 weeks or 30 days of working with us or applying to work with us. And this is after they've gone through a lot of warm up through our content, through our presentations, downloadable material. And we found that it was only 12%.
Okay.
Yes. And then we found that the rest are dragging their feet, so to speak, and they will only buy much, much, much later. And sometimes I would get the occasional email, because we email twice a day, which is a little bit aggressive for most people. They email, maybe once a week at best. Right. So we often get emails from people saying how they've been on our list for 8 months, or they've been on our list for 2 years. So a lot of times people apply and, at the state of being ready to buy now, right? And they say, I've been following you for years, right? So it obviously takes them a long time to finally get to that, psychologically, to get to that place to commit to a buying decision.
Yeah, that's true. And so the asset that you have, if you think about it as we're taking this capital investment approach, the asset that you have is the portfolio of unconverted leads.
Yes.
Those email addresses, the bigger the list, the more value it has as it ages.
Yeah. This is not a concept people don't get. I'm glad you said as it ages, because I noticed that the more time people spend on my list, the easier it is for them to transact with me, and the more on average they will spend per transaction.
That's right. I mean, it's so funny. I do those my Breakthrough Blueprint events, the small mastermind events. I do 9 of them a year, and it's $5,000. And every event that I do, there's somebody there that it's the first interaction that we've had, and they've been in my world or on my list for 5 years, 7 years, whatever. And this is the first time I'm meeting them. And it's it's profound, the value of that over time.
Yeah, and it never seems to stop, to amaze you, right? As well. Like we talk about it as marketers and educators. We try to help other people recognize this idea. But when you meet someone or talk to somebody and they say, Dean, I feel like I've known you for years because I've been watching your videos and attending your webinars. And you'd be like, wow, incredible. And that's, I mean, that's really cool. And you have another metaphor, which hits so well for me personally, about strawberries.
Tell me about that one.
Oh.
I forget this one. To remind me.
Okay, cool. So you were giving this one talk, and you were saying it again about the leads in the context of tapping your biggest asset, the non-converted leads. You
Yes.
said that you break them down into clusters of 90 days.
Yes.
And that every 90 days you reconnect, and this is me quoting you, reconnect with the green strawberries who turn red.
Yes. Right, exactly. Okay,
And you do it,
right.
of course, with one of your most famous things that you do is the 9-word email.
Yes. And there's the thing is that's where the best opportunity is at 90 days to send an email to someone and say, hey, Igor, are you still looking for faucets? That's just the simplest thing, right? Are you still interested in faucets? Are you still looking for a house in Georgetown? Are you still looking for, we had a great story of a guy, a yacht broker, who sent that 9-word email to a list of what they were referring to in their office as dead leads. He sent a 9-word email to them. Are you still looking for a yacht? And he uncovered a guy who's under contract now for $120 million yacht. That came from, and in the meantime, bought a $50 million yacht to tide him over until his yacht will be delivered.
In the meanwhile,
in the meantime, right? Like he needed something for the next 3 years while they're building his super yacht,
This is
so
nuts.
that all from a 9-word email to a list of dead leads. So there's value. And I always get, it's like a magic trick that when people first experiment with a 9-word email, it's like surprising to them, the number of replies that they get.
And yeah, this is exactly what happened to me. I used the 9-word email the first time you talked about on the iLoveMarketing podcast. Mm-hmm. And by the way, guys, if you want to find out what the 9-word email is, it's actually super simple, but I still want you to go and get it from Dean's site. I think you said it's emailmastery.com.
Emailmastery.com. Yeah.
Yeah. So head over to emailmastery.com right now as you're listening. If you're driving your car, stop your car, put on the winkers and just go to emailmastery.com on your phone, enter the email, get the 9-word email. I used the 9-word email when I was selling, I called it back then Solo Tycoon Coaching. It was a coaching program where I taught people how to build businesses just like mine. So again, the classic Dan Kennedy model. You get good at doing something, then go teach other people how to do it as well.
Yes.
And so I've had a list of prospects I've generated off of, I think it was Facebook ads at the time. And they didn't convert. I think I've had like 600 of them. And I sent out a 9-word email and I got 152 responses. Now, what I didn't account for is the fact that I needed to communicate with each and every single one of them personally, because a part of the whole strategy is to have a dialogue with them, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I wasn't ready for that. So all of a sudden I found myself, talking to 152 people at the same time. So guys, like this is just to tell you that it's dangerously powerful.
Yes.
If you have a list of unconverted prospects. And what's really cool, and this is just me taking it to the technical aspect of it, is that from a delivery standpoint, it will look and feel and just seem as a completely friendly, personalized email to Google, Yahoo, and all the other email service providers. And you will have responses. People actually hit reply and write to you like they would to a friend. Therefore, your email delivery to that list will automatically go up, and you will land in the primary inbox more often because of those responses.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the hidden benefit. And that's one of the secrets of it is making that email, treating it like you're only sending one, like you're only sending it to one person. That's the mindset, right? That we often have this broadcast voice that when we're sending an email, we're thinking about sending an email to the list, broadcasting. And the only people, they don't know that they're on a list, or that there's other people, or they don't know whether they're one of 100 or 100,000. They don't have any context for it, right? You're showing up in their inbox. And if you're showing up as a marketer with a headline as a subject line that you're trying to, convince or tease somebody into opening the email, you're going to look like all the other marketers. I always say to people that, your mom has 100% open rate on her emails, right? Because your mom is sending individual email to you.
Yep.
And, and so if you look at, this is a really great subject line exercise, actually, is if you look at your inbox and you just scroll through to find the last email that was just for you, what you're going to find is that those emails are very different than the emails above and below it, right? You'll see it, because your mom and your friends, the marketers are using it as a headline. Your mom and your friends, people are sending you individual ones. It's almost like they have a label maker and they're like using the subject line as the label for how you'll file this email away later so you can find what it's about, Wow. So your mom might send an email with a subject line that says dinner or whatever, something like, or your friends might send you an email that says, movie Friday, or something that's just overtly clear of what's actually inside the email.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who we bounce ideas back and forth, and he now works on a new offer. So now that I recall, again, just because you kind of pointed it out, and I've never even thought about it that way, and I do email marketing for a living, and I pride myself for it. The last email he sent me was 10 bullets for the new offer. So, I only reviewed them maybe 3 days later, but I knew exactly what I was looking for. You're right. Yeah. It was like a label. Mm-hmm. Wow, this is crazy. This is nuts. And the other thing that really comes to mind is I was interviewing Nate Rifkin. He writes for Agora, and he said something really amazing, which again, until he said it, I didn't recognize that when people check their email, they don't go looking for emails to read. They go and looking for emails to delete.
Mm-hmm. I think that's they're looking for ones that they don't have to read. I think that actually, my experience is I don't know that people actually delete emails anymore, because we just get so many of them. It's overwhelming, and there's no reason to, because it's all in the cloud. I think everybody keeps every email all the time anyway, right? So I think what we're really doing and the reality is we're scrolling. Nobody's going on their desktop to read emails anymore. It's all really, we're scrolling through our inbox on our iPhones or whatever. And so you're just scrolling through to find the ones that are, that you got to read,
Wow, this is so cool. And what you mentioned about treating your list as if it's one person was so profound too, because a lot of times people come to me and they're like, Igor, I don't know what to say in my emails. And my answer to them is, what if your prospect or your best customer was actually your best friend, and you were having coffee and you were sitting right across the table from them, and that, what would you say then? Yes. And all of a sudden the penny drops and they're like, oh, I would say this, and this.
That's it.
I'm like,
conversational. Yeah. That's the whole point, right? Conversational conversion. That's the words that I use for what I practice. Conversational conversion.
Yeah, you use the word dialogue a lot, and this is what marketing is, isn't it? It's the dialogue that happens between you and your best customer in their head, right? As they consume your marketing. Yeah.
That's exactly right. But the reality is, in email, you can actually be in a dialogue. That's why when you start all I want to look for is see who's willing to engage in a dialogue. So I'll often ask, I send what I call SPEAR emails, SPEAR, short, personal, expecting a reply. That's the magic words that I'm looking for here, right? So I send something to somebody, and for 6.5 years now, the email that I send periodically to my list to fill these Breakthrough Blueprint events all over the world is the same email. It'll have in the subject line Orlando Mastermind, and then it'll say, hey, Igor, I'm getting together with a group next month for a marketing mastermind. We're going to spend 3 days going deep in applying the 8 profit activators to your business. Would you like to join us? That's it. So it's short, personal, and expecting a reply. I'm asked, would you like to join us?
Yo, it's Igor. Unfortunately, right about this time in our interview with Dean, my audio recording failed me completely. It happens every now and again, and unfortunately, I only discovered this after we got off the phone. Now, at the end of the interview, Dean was just finalizing the example of having a personal conversation with your prospects and emphasizing the importance of conducting a dialogue rather than shouting at your prospects and at your customers with your claims, which is way more effective. And as we were closing as well, we started going over some of the things you can do in order to work with Dean as well as learn more from him, because he is widely considered to be one of the best direct response marketers in the world. So I highly urge you to go to deanjackson.com, where you can download his Breakthrough DNA report about the 8 profit activators you can trigger in your business right now. I also recommend you subscribe to morecheeselesswhiskers.com podcast, where you can listen to Dean's podcast, as well as joyofprocrastination.com, where he and Dan Sullivan host another podcast. So, Dean is big on podcasts, as you understand. And I also urge you, when you go to deanjackson.com, to go ahead and also visit emailmastery.com, where you can download the amazing 9-word email that brings dead leads back to life, okay? So with that said, thank you again for tuning in to the List Building Lifestyle. Now we're going to switch to our usual outro. This is Igor Kafetz. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Happy New Year, and have an amazing celebration tonight. Ciao. Thank you for tuning in to the List Building Lifestyle. Get access to previous episodes, the transcript of today's show, and exclusive content at our website at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. Also, don't forget to claim your free seat at the traffic workshop I'm conducting this week, where I'm showing how I built a list of 4,331,656 email subscribers without losing money, and how my clients are putting anywhere from 50 to 500 new leads per day on their list at a profit without any list building experience. Just go to igor.cx to claim your free seat now.